Okay, so I just finished chapter 1 of Cafe Enchante, and I am fucking loving it so far. There's been so of course the female lead has decided to take over the cafe, but we've also gotten some idea a little bit more about who the characters are, and I'm loving 4 out of the 5 love interests. I love all of the non-humans. Monsieur, Canus, Eel, who I called like Fado last time, but his name is Eel, and Ignis. All fucking charming as fuck in their own ways. I love them all. I'm not a huge fan of Kaudu, the human in this. He is part of a government that's apparently been watching the cafe for a while, and there was this whole attack on the cafe, and we got to see the non-human characters kind of demonstrate their power, which was fucking awesome in so many ways. And I definitely normally there's like 1 or 2 standouts in this initial display of the love interest that I like, but this time I really like 4. Like I equally like pretty much 4 out of the 5 of them. The only one that I would say kind of is like inching towards the top for me is Ignis, because I love me a tsundere. I love me this kind of brash, rough around the edges guy. But I will say Canus is his own type of charming. Monsieur is very charming. Eel is still very much kind of like, I think I'll still enjoy his route just fine, but he still strikes me as like someone I would love to have as a friend rather than a romantic interest. But something else about him that I didn't care for as much is, unfortunately, there's this little thing that's kind of reminiscent of Shion from Variable Barricade. And for anyone, actually, I don't think I've ever talked about it because it was before I started doing this. Shion from Variable Barricade pissed me off so fucking much. I hated him. I hated his route more than the true route. And the true route was creepy as fuck. But I hated his route so much. His big thing was that he wanted to be a kept man. And the parallels between Shion and Eel are fairly superficial. But there's just that little reminiscent thing. They both have blonde hair. They both have a softer voice. They are both a little more effeminate than the other characters. And Eel has this quality about him that apparently makes you want to take care of him. And Shion was very much the type of person that wanted to be a kept man and always had people taking care of him. And so in those ones, I'm like, it's just ruining the whole romantic vibe for Eel for me. Because I hated Shion so much. I was not a fan of him. I still would not rule Eel out. I don't think I'll hate his route, because Eel as a person seems different than Shion. Shion was very self-interested, and not that Eel isn't, but Eel is just has a vibe of being just a better person than Shion ever was. So that's about it so far. That's about as far as we've gotten for the first chapter. Really enjoying this so far. It's a very fun story, fun cast of characters, fantastic voice acting. So far, I am absolutely fucking loving this. Okay, so I just finished chapter 2, and my god, these characters are fucking adorable. I love each and every one of them, with the exception of the human. Not the main character. The main character is fine. She's sweet. She's a little bland, but not like egregiously submissive or anything, not annoyingly so like that or anything. She's a pretty typical Otome MC. My god, the love interests are just darling. Like, I love them. Even the guy that I would have kind of pegged more as the flirt isn't like super flirt. Like, he's just adorable. Like, I love them all. Eel is definitely, well, Eel loves Otome games, and I love him for loving Otome games, and he will be a fun route, but I don't think I will get him this first time, because for my first time through, I like to answer all of the prompts as a way I would naturally answer them just to see who I would get. And I would be happy with almost any of them. Wouldn't even necessarily hate getting the human, but I wouldn't. He's not my first choice by a long shot. I'd be happy with just about any of them. Eel, I think, would just be generally fun. I think Kanus is like just adorable. The magic around his neck as he's headless, so like the magic around his neck changes color for his emotions, and it's really cute to see sometimes, especially because like the affectation in his voice will change too. It's fucking adorable. And I'm kind of surprised, but Ignis isn't as much of a tsundere as I thought he would be. Like, he does, I think that's, like, the general archetype that he's based on, but he's a very soft tsundere. Like, he's not super cold or anything. He's just kind of this gruff guy. And it's really sweet. And he's, him and, kind of were, like, really protective of the main character, which was fucking adorable. Like, the whole thing is just so sweet. And Monsieur's human form, goddamn. Like, this game is just precious on so many fucking levels, and I fucking love it. We have had zero story progression, though. Like, granted, it's only chapter 2, so whatever. And the common route tends to drag on a little bit more for me, and then I get more into it once we're, like, on a roll on a certain route. Right now, it's very much kind of setting the scene. We're learning about the characters more. They're all just fucking precious, and I love them all. Oh my god. Definitely. I always say that, but I'm like, the human. The human's just, For the non-human characters, I love them. I love them all. So I really don't have much more to say on that. We got to see a little bit how the magic kind of keeps people from in the area from like freaking out about their appearance. Like they just are kind of more welcoming. And there was this really cute scene with Kanus and I have the main character on the default name. It's Kotone. These high school girls came up to them and had them pose together like a couple, which was really cute. And yeah, like there's just so much. I can't think of a better word than adorable and cute to describe this so far, because it is just a charming otome game. I mean, oh my goodness. And it's kind of a nice, it's a real breath of fresh air for me, because Variable Barricade started out with their allies not being, like, super great. Like, they all kind of had issues in the common route. Like, I wasn't super psyched about any of them. And then the guy that I chose for my first, because I always choose based on my personal preference on my first playthrough, and so I chose Ichiya. And his was probably the best one for me, with Taiga being a close second. But then the other, I mean, Nayuta was sweet, but it was kind of stupid. And the whole Step On Me thing was an event. Cupid Parasite had a lot of good things going for it. I was kind of surprised I liked Alan as much as I did. But even that in the beginning didn't paint any of the characters in a super great way. I adored 3 out of the 6 characters. 2 were okay, and only 1 I really hated. So, and then I played my butler, at which all of those characters were just awful. But my point being is that in the 3 otome games I've played since I've kind of come back to gaming and come back to the genre, the opening always had the love interest kind of not shining in their best light. And this one, I mean, they're all just adorable and charming as fuck, and I love them. So I'm really excited about the next chapter. Okay, so I just got through chapter 3, and it seemed like I was making a decision that might lead to who I get, but then it kind of made an odd turn. But first I'll say, of course, everyone is fucking adorable, and I love them all. And we got to learn a little bit more about each of the characters' worlds. It wasn't, like, super informative, and it was stuff that I more or less inferred, with the exception of some details on the demon world and the general climate of the beast world. I thought since Ignis is like very fiery. I thought it would have been a hotter climate, but it's actually very cold, which was interesting. Cafe Enchante is officially reopened, although from the sounds of it, like, what kind of confuses me is why did it need all the renovations? Like, obviously she needs to learn to make proper coffee since they're paying to be there and everything. But did the renovations and stuff really need to happen? From the sounds of it, those four plus the human of the government agency that's keeping an eye on them are like the only people that are ever there. I just thought it was interesting and a little unnecessary, but it's fine because we got plenty of time with the other characters. And there was a decision to make while they were prepping for a little party. It was really sweet for the grand reopening, and you got to choose who to help. And of course, I helped Ignis because I fucking love him so fucking much. Oh my god. And now where it ended is we're about to travel to another world, and the safest one was Canos's world, the fairy world. And then it switched, but rather than having kind of like the generic main, it still says main chapter, which is where I'm a little bit like, is it, then maybe we haven't switched yet, but it had Canos as like the main in the card. And so I'm like, did I get Canos's route? Or are we still like the main, is it just his image on there because it's his world, and like there's still a chance. I mean, I'm happy with Canos. Like, Canos was my second choice, easy. But I'm just like, do I have his route, or is it just because we're going to his world? So, not a whole lot happened. This was actually a pretty short chapter, so I don't really have much more to say other than I fucking love all of them so fucking much. And yeah. So I guess we're moving on to chapter 4. Okay, so I just finished playing through chapter 4, not 5. 4. It just started chapter 5. But I finished playing through chapter 4, and from the looks of it, we're gonna get a taste of like each of the love interests, what that's gonna look like, kind of like a little taste of their routes before we head into like an actual individual route. And our first person that we got to kind of see a little bit more into was Canos. And I love that it's tying a folklore into this whole game. Like, it makes me want, like, apparently it's not explicitly said, but it's more or less it's said that Canos is based off Dullahan, which is a headless horseman in Irish folklore that will appear and only leaves when someone has died, and as such, Canos is kind of like associated with death in his world. It's fucking precious. We got to meet Titania, the queen of the fairies. Kind of surprised we didn't see Oberon there as well, but still, it was a lovely game. I could predict some of it only because I know fairy lore, and I could kind of anticipate some of what was going to happen, especially with how the tiny fairies interacted with Kotone. But I fucking love Canos. I fucking love him. I would not be disappointed if I got his route. Him and Ignis. And I went ahead and took a look at a route order walkthrough. I didn't spoil anything for myself. I just wanted to know what like the best route is. And of course, much like with Cupid Parasite, the two guys that I latch onto immediately are like the lower end of like the importance and the like lore and story importance is their routes. Canos is considered like the first one to go for, followed by Ignis, and then we have the human whose name I can't remember, Kaoru, and then Il, and then Monsieur. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'm like, Barbie's like, okay, so I won't be spoiled on anything too much like I was in Variable Barricade, because I went for Ichi at first, who was considered one of the last, well, he was the last love interest to play before the final route in a suggested play order. So in a way, it is beneficial that my favorites are first, but that makes it a little harder to get through the game. I still like Il and Monsieur just fine. Kaoru's right in the middle, and he's going to be my biggest hurdle, much like Gil was my biggest hurdle in Cupid Parasite, because he was right in the middle too. So I'm not looking forward to that. If I get Kaoru off the bat, I'm going to be pissed. It'll be both a blessing and a curse. It'll be a blessing because I can get his route out of the way and I just get it done with right off the bat. It'll be a curse because I don't want it. He's not the one I want the game to steer me towards. Please, I don't. Canos or Ignis would make me very happy. I'd be still plenty happy with Eel or Monsieur. Kind of hoping I don't get Monsieur though, because if he is like the true route end from the looks of it for this game, then I don't know if I want like the complete story immediately, but I'm still very much just choosing based on how I would behave and just seeing where that gets me. We got to Canos was a little bit, his backstory was fleshed out a little bit. We got to not like entirely, we just got to see that, okay, he's had kind of a lonely existence, and Kotone and Canos met when she was like 4, which is interesting, and I have some mixed feelings about that. Like, it was just a brief meeting, it's not like he saw her grow up or anything, but there is always that kind of weird thing when the love interests knew the protagonist as a child and then they have a route together. There's something about that has an ick factor for me, so I'm gonna ignore that because it detracts from my experience. But I loved Midio, which is Canos' world. We got to see how the characters act some, mostly Canos, and he was just darling. He's a darling man. So yeah. Let's move on to chapter 5, in which case it looks like it's a Kaoru-centered chapter. I'm not looking forward to it. I gotta be honest. I'm not looking forward to it. I don't think I'll hate him as much as I hated Gil in Cupid Parasite, because Gil was fucking creepy. Kaoru just is, like, I don't hate him the way I hated Gil. I don't want to, he doesn't interest me in the slightest. So, we'll see. But we're gonna move on to chapter 5. Okay, so I finally got through chapter 5, which you guys aren't going to notice a finally, because all of my common route opinions are going to be in one video, but it took me 2 days to get me through this, mostly because there was a lot of setup in this chapter. In a way, it was good, because we got introduced to a new character. His name is Kariya Abe, and he's a middle schooler who was a changeling, and he's a really cute little character. I like him. And we got to see Kaoru and how he works, and we got to see the most obnoxious co-worker ever, who I don't like, and I don't like when he's on screen, and it takes me forever to get through it, because it's the pompous asshole character that is his co-worker, and I hate him. We got to learn a little bit more about how the, like, government agency in this game works. Kaoru was really put in a positive light on how much he really cares for the non-human people that come into our world, and there's apparently a whole list of people that are benign and just choose to live in the human world, and there's records kept of them, and it's this whole thing, and Kaoru really, goes out of his way to help this middle school kid. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, the expansion of the world was really interesting. I just can't get into Kaoru. I just can't. Okay, yeah, he was a little bit cool. He feels almost to the point of it being a needed in this. He's needed, but it feels like the whole interaction between him and Kariya could have easily been handed off and been part of Canos's route or his appeal or whatever, and Kaoru was simply a connecting factor. And I'm sure some people will disagree with me. I just can't get into Kaoru. I just can't. It did make his character more likable. I think I'll be able to get through his route and not hate every second of it the way I did Gil's in Cupid Parasite. Kaoru at least is a decent character. Kaoru has integrity. Kaoru has compassion. Kaoru gives a fuck about something outside his one personal obsession, which Kaoru doesn't have. This is more of an allegory for Gil, but Kaoru is a decent character. This is not to shit on Kaoru as a character. It's not even meant to shit on him as a love interest. I just don't have the interest. Like, he's just not for me. And on top of that, I do like, it's weird to say that I struggle with the age gap when the like 3 of the other characters can be hundreds to thousands of years old, but those characters aren't human. And while there is something to be said for their massive amounts of life experience that I probably couldn't even fathom, you just don't feel the age gap between them and the player character the way you do with Kaoru. And even the way he refers to her as Kotone-chan, it's just it makes the age difference a bit more noticeable for me. I could be wrong. I mean, it's also a term of endearment to call someone chan. So that could just be the connection that he had with her grandfather, and the fact that, you know, she's his granddaughter, and so there's this kind of familiarity thing. So it can be a little bit of a pet name. I don't know. That's just something. I feel like I'm justifying just not being into Kaoru. It felt his like chapter in the common route just felt kind of forced to me. There was some benefits to be like, I like Kariya. Like, he's a cute little kid. Like, well, not little kid, but he's like, it feels like he's gonna add some layers and some potential really funny moments in the game, and so I like Kaoru for bringing Kariya here. And I like Kaoru just in general. I just don't feel the need to necessarily go through his route. I will, because I have to 100% everything because I'm fucking stupid. But yeah, so like, this is me going on forever just to say I don't really care for Kaoru as a love interest. Like, still not... I don't hate him, at the very least. At the very least, I don't hate him. Unlike Gil, who can die in a fire. I like Kaoru as a character. He's a cool guy. Tries really hard. Put his life on the line for a kid he barely knew. Really solid guy. It just is gonna... I think more than anything, it's just gonna take me longer. I feel like Kaoru's route will be fun to go through in terms of like the expansion of the world that we get and how it would like interact with our world. Like, I think that there's some really interesting things to be found in Kaoru's route. It's just going to take me longer to get through than some of the others, I think. Especially the one that, because the next chapter, we're moving on to chapter 6, and it's Ignis. I love Ignis. Kaoru's route made me like Ignis more. Like, Ignis is such an earnest guy that's just rough around the edges. He's tsundere through and through, and I love him for that. So, we're gonna move on to chapter 6, which I'm thinking I'm probably gonna get to fairly quickly. Okay, so I have just finished chapter 6 of the common route. It is taking me forever to get through this common route. My god, it's so long. What's interesting, too, I couldn't help but look up, like, how many chapters each route is, and each route is only 4 chapters, but the common route is 8. Not a huge fan of that, because it feels like it's taking a lot of setup for less payoff, but maybe the chapters are longer. I don't know. We'll see as we go through. But for Ignis's chapter, it was definitely a sadder chapter than we've seen up to this point. It really played into Ignis, though, being like this rough around the edges guy with a very soft heart. And goddamn, do I love that trope. I fucking love that trope so much. I really hope I get Ignis. I've also learned that this is a game where we don't get to choose who we pick first, which I kind of love because I want to see who I would like naturally end up with. I also took a look at what some of the choices that I made earlier. I didn't look at any choices coming up because I wanted those to be natural choices. But the choices that I've chosen up to this point aren't very conducive to Ignis, particularly when you're supposed to sit with him and talk, like in one of the first chapters. Because I was supposed to sit next to him and I sat across from him because that's what I would naturally do. But we'll see. We'll see how it turns out. Ignis's chapter we got to see, he's like apparently like the strongest creature in Bestia, which is interesting, but he has a no-kill philosophy, which is apparently very against like the natural order of Bestia. So love that for him. Love it. We also got introduced to Dromi, who I'm not a fan of. I don't care for him. He's very annoying. I highly suspect he is gonna be a villain in Ignis's route. There was this whole thing with these Minotaurs tracking Ignis's location and like attacking him and attacking those around him. And it's clear that someone is feeding them information. I think it's Dromi. I don't trust Dromi. Dromi seems like the character that plays up the fool so that no one pays him any mind, but in reality he's either jealous of Ignis, he secretly hates Ignis, something like there's a secret grudge there that Ignis may not realize. There's something going on there. There's something going on. And I could be completely wrong, but my prediction is when we get to Ignis's route, Dromi is going to be a betrayer in some form. Whether he's the main villain or just a pawn, I don't know. But my guess is that he's doing something against Ignis's best interest. And I tend to want to lean towards that it's purposeful. But it could also just be that he's such an idiot that he does it on accident. I tend to lean towards that it's a little bit more calculated. And we got Kororo, which is a sea demon. And it's fucking adorable. It's basically the mascot of the game. It's not really featured anywhere, but it seems like it's so cute, and it has like the proportions of like a little mascot. Ignis's chapter ended on a very somber note with the genocide of what might have been Kororo's family. We don't know for sure. We also learned that Ignis is a pretty stand-up guy and that he's very strong. That's kind of... we didn't get as much time with Ignis in his chapter as I would have liked. But Ignis still got some time to shine, and I'm so hoping I get his route. Oh my god. I'm thinking, though, I may very well get Kanus's route. We'll see, because the game chooses for us. So we'll see. We'll see. Next up is Eel's chapter. Okay, so chapter 7 was Eel's chapter. And it was a charming chapter. I gotta be honest, again, Eel really strikes me as someone that would make a fabulous friend, more so than a love interest for me personally. I like him. I think he has his own charm to him. He is kind of the embodiment of, he's a bit confused, but he's got the spirit. And I like him. A couple things to note with this chapter. They were trying to figure out a way to... basically, the entire cast was trying to find a way to cheer up Kotone after seeing a massacre in the last chapter. And Eel's suggestion, which they all went with, was based from his experience in Otome games, which was to take her on a date. That was the whole thing. And so there was this point where she has a day off, and you choose what you're going to do. And I decided to practice making coffee, because that was, of the 3 items, that would be on my days off more often than not. Not as much since I've gotten back into Otome games, but in general, what I do is some sort of skill building like this. I could be knitting. It's their hobbies, but I could be knitting. I could be drawing. I do something kind of skill based because that's fun for me. So the coffee thing felt like it was the most. I was between that coffee or garden, but I chose the coffee one because this whole information that we've got from coffee in the game was interesting, and I'm like, oh cool, let's work with this. Well, of course, out of everyone that I could have gone on a date with, I got Kaoru. I'm so mad. I ended up with... I know, I think the other 2 options, at the very least, were Kanus and fucking Ignis. So, the 2 that I like the most, and I chose, without knowing it, I ended up choosing Kaoru. I'm so fucking mad. I wanted to go out on a date with either one of the other guys. That's fine. I think if I had chosen the garden, I would have ended up with Kanus, and then I took a look to see what the option would have been if you were trying to go for Ignis, and it was to play with Kororo. But my dumbass chose to make coffee. And so I ended up with Kaoru for the date with Eel, because he ended up going on a date. Well, I only got to see the date with Kaoru. I didn't get to see the date with anyone else, but it was explained that she ended up going on a date with all of them. Fine, whatever. And then Eel hadn't taken her on a date yet, so finally he took her on a date. They go to this Otome event, and we get to see Eel start to have more of an understanding of humans, and one, how fragile they are, and two, this, how him not being, like, super cognizant of the situation could lead to danger for Kotone. And it was a couple of, like, really sweet things. Ultimately, though, I really still have a hard time seeing these two as a couple. Eel does not strike me as a romantic interest, personally. But overall, very sweet chapter. I enjoyed it. This common route is fucking long, but I think we're getting on to the last chapter, which is the one that focuses on Monsieur. Currently, my preferred love interests go Ignis, Kanus, Monsieur, Eel, and Kaoru. So that's not the order I'm going to play them in. I'm going to, of course, just end up with whoever I get this first time around. And then I'll probably go back through, get the other endings for that person, and then move on to the play order. This is where we are for now. I'm not sure who I'm going to end up with. My guess, if I'm going to make a prediction here, my guess is that I'll probably end up with Kanus. As much as I'd love to go for Ignis, I think I'm going to end up with Kanus. I'd be surprised if I got Eel. I'll be fucking pissed if I got Kaoru. I don't want to go. I mean, what the fuck? Why? If I get Kaoru, I don't want Kaoru. I don't want Kaoru my first time through. Like, Kaoru, don't get me wrong. As we've gotten to know him a bit more, I don't think I'm going to hate his route. But it's not who I want. I want Ignis. And if I can't have Ignis, I want Kanus. And if I can't have Kanus, I want Monsieur. If I can't have Monsieur, I want Eel. Like, that's what I want. For this first time through, please just give me any of the other love interests but Kaoru. I don't hate him. I don't hate him. But I don't, like, he's bottom of my list. So, we'll finish chapter 8, and right as chapter 8 ends, because I don't know that a chapter has ended until I see the little plate for, like, the next chapter. So, and that it's what's going to show me is who, at the end of chapter 8, it's going to show me who I got. So, I'll end this common route video with telling you who I got and where we're going. Or I might hide it from you all. I don't know yet. But we'll see. Alright, so I finally reached the end of chapter 8. Chapter 8 it felt longer than the other chapters to me. That I can't help that it was just genuinely longer, or if there was just so much shit happening in it compared to the other chapters, especially the other chapters centered around the love interests. I can't tell if the chapter was genuinely longer or if there just was so much shit happening in it that it felt longer. What I thought was supposed to be more centered on Monsieur, we didn't get, like, Monsieur was definitely a centerpiece in this chapter, but it didn't feel like it focused much on him. And I kind of feel like that's kind of the point. At the same time, it was very clear in this chapter, like, Monsieur is 100% the true route for this game, because there was, like, an actual little plot line, like, it was a mini route almost, with how much shit was happening in it. There's this whole thing with a voice reaching out to Kotone from the door, which I'm thinking I'm not going to get any sort of resolution to that until I get to Monsieur's route, which is fine, but I really hope that that's addressed. That particular mystery is very intriguing to me, and I would like to know more about it. Monsieur himself, we got to see a little bit more of his personality, and he definitely has his own charm to him. I've actually grown to like him a lot more in this chapter. There isn't a whole lot I can say about it other than he just had more moments of being endearing. There's also something I forgot to mention in Eel's chapter, is that there is this really kind of funny mother hen thing that Monsieur does over eel, which is really cute, although it was called Brocon, which I was like, oh god, no. But there's that, but then they also fight together, and when they fight together, it's like perfect, like it's wonderfully done, and I love it. So there's just a lot to be said for Monsieur. I liked him. I enjoyed this chapter, and we're gonna start heading into the routes. The thing is that there were a lot of, I felt like the threads. There was a thread left open with Ignis, kind of, given it connected to Kororo. So I'm thinking that that's where Ignis's route is gonna lead. Kanus's route feels like it's gonna lean heavily on kind of an inner conflict sort of thing. I just wanted to give some predictions. I guess I should have led with that. But Kanus's route feels like it's going to lean more into personal, like a personal internal conflict regarding like his general ostracization from the other fairies and being kind of seen as this harbinger of death. And we're going to get kind of that isolation outcast theme in his route. That would be my guess. Kaoru Rindo's route is going to focus primarily on his job. I feel like we're going to get the assistant to Mikado, the crazy scientist guy. I feel there's going to be some big reveal in that area for Kaoru's route. I also feel like we're going to see a bit more of the inner workings of the GMP. I think like there's probably going to be at least a section devoted to maybe insecurities related to his age, especially since they're going with someone so much younger. That's definitely going to be a thing, I think. And I think that Kariya is going to play not like a super prominent role, but I think he's going to be more consistent, show up more consistently than he will in other routes. Eel's route, I don't fucking know where that one's going. I don't, like, he's a very kind of opaque character where it's kind of, like, I think if I had to take a guess, if gun to my head, I had to take a guess, I would say that his route is going to be devoted more towards him developing a level of awareness, maybe developing that sort of, for lack of a better term, humanist. Even though he's not human, he's an angel. Like, I just feel like there's going to be a greater sense of awareness that's going to develop in him that the other love interests already have, but he hasn't developed so much yet. Monsieur is a big fucking mystery, but I feel like it's going to be full of angst. Like, if I had to pin one thing for Monsieur, it's angst. I'm not sure what we're going to see. I also got the idea of, so, wild theory. I don't fucking know what's happening, and I want to be clear about that. I don't know what's happening, but it's mentioned about Monsieur knowing Kotone before, and that could refer to when she was a child coming in, but I don't know why, but I get the idea that maybe it's going to lead to she was someone in his life, in a previous life. Like, there's going to be this whole reincarnation thing. I could be wrong, but I'm like, was she, like, his previous wife? He's lived for thousands of years. Was she his previous wife? Did she die tragically in the demon world at one point? And, like, I don't know, because Monsieur hasn't gotten a huge amount of talking, and when he does talk, he's very nonchalant about a lot of things. And I'm getting like destined soul vibes from him. Like, I think he has a deeper connection to Kotone than the others do, and I get the feeling like there's going to be this whole reincarnation vibe. So before I reveal who I got, and I gotta be honest, I'm just a smidge disappointed. It wasn't who I was expecting at all. But there was this really hilarious part where Monsieur actually gets all serious and is like, I'm sorry, I'm going to take responsibility. I will handle this myself. You guys don't have to worry about it. And they all take turns, like, beating the shit out of him. Like, they all, a couple of them get kicks in, a couple get slaps. And they, like, three of them, Kaoru, Ignis and Kanus do it because they like, what the fuck are you doing? No, of course we're gonna help you, you fucking dumbass. But apparently Eel was just like, okay, we're slapping him now. Like, and it's in that way that I do enjoy Eel as a character. Like, he's a fantastic character. And apparently I got his route. I'm surprised. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't just a smidge disappointed, because of the 5 routes before me, I would have been thrilled with Canus, Ignis, or Monsieur. Kaudu would have been a much bigger disappointment, but Eel certainly was far from the top of my list. But I'm curious to see, and I'm just going to keep going, and I may very well end up getting a bad end for him. And if I do, I do. It's fine. It is what it is. I wanted to play through this the first time to see where I ended up. And I think what I'm going to do, because I took a look to see, depending on the Otome game, there can be many different endings. It looks like each route only has 2 endings, the good ending and the bad ending. So what I'm going to do for each route going forward is just answer them the way that I would. Like, I'll go through the common route again for each love interest, and I'll follow a walkthrough, make sure I hit all the important parts, and then when I start their route, from there, I'm going to answer as I would, just to see where I end up. But, yeah, so we're going to start with Eel's route, so, surprisingly enough. I am confused and intrigued about how I ended up here. He's not who I would have pegged, but we'll see. We'll see how it works.